Fighting crime with Filmation this time. Here's your look at the brand new McFarlane toys. The New Adventures of Batman. Playboy billionaire by day, Bruce Wayne's double life affords him the comfort of a life without financial worry. A loyal butler turned guardian and the perfect base of operations in the ancient network of caves beneath the family's sprawling estate. By night, however, he sheds all pretense, dons his iconic scalloped cape and pointed cowl and takes to the shadowy streets, skies, and rooftops of Gotham City. Incredibly detailed 6-inch scale retro-style figures based on the New Adventures of Batman, designed with articulation with up to 12 moving parts for retro play. Just before we get a closer look at a brand new figure of a slightly older cartoon Cape Crusader, let's take the old tape measure and see how tall the brand new Adventures of Batman stands. The actual series of the New Adventures of Batman actually ran from February 12th to May 28th, 1977, so it predates the person behind the camera by 1 year. You can start doing the math for yourself. Sadly, though, the series only ran for 16 episodes, and yet it's been released on DVD and since has recently been re-released on Blu-ray. I'd like to thank the folks as well over at McFarlane Toys that did provide the sample of the brand new Adventures of Batman that we could have a look at. Back to the tape measure. The figure of Batman stands exactly 6 inches in height. You can see it for yourself. Or the figure is going to be 15 centimeters tall. In the off chance that the figure looks familiar to you, it's because they're using the 1960s Adam West Batman for the body. You can see that they are using the arms, the gloves, the lower half of his body, even his boots. The only thing really that they've changed differently here is giving him a brand new headpiece with cowl. Here's as well what the figure looked like with the same Adam West Batman, just slightly different colored cowl, and of course wearing his breathing mask. Bodies aren't the only thing that gets shared between the two Batman. The figure also comes included with accessories that we've seen already with the 60s series. First, the figure comes included with a Batarang. The Batarang is the same one that we did get from the 60s series Batman, just lighter colored. Matches, of course, the cowl, the cape, the underoos, and the gloves. The thing about it, though, is that both of them still have the hole, so if you had yourself the proper eyesight and be able to feed through that, that's pretty small of a hole. You could put a rope on the end of this, and Batman would be able to have the means to throw this. Now, he does have also the means to hold the Batarang, although with this one, they're actually using the original Adam West Batman that only had one gripping hand. I wish that they could have actually used the breathing mask Batman, because that Batman would have actually had gripping hands on both sides. Then he would be able to accommodate both accessories. What's the other accessory, you may ask? Well, the figure also comes included with this Bat Radio. And just to reach off to the side, you can also see as well, they are using the exact same Bat Radio. This one is maybe a little bit lighter color. You can see kind of around the outer area of the silver. But other than that, the Bat Radios are the same. Still, again, I wish that, looking at the two figures, I'm just going to bring back in the Batman that had the breathing mask, for example. See how this one has two gripping hands? And yet, the original 60s Batman had only one gripping hand and then the other one for punching with onomatopoeia bubble boxes. Kind of wish, again, they could have used this figure, so you could have actually had the benefit of using two gripping hands. Let's move those out of the way. If, though, you wanted to put these in his hand, again, you only have one to choose from, just take the Batarang, and it fits inside his grip pretty well. Although it sits a little on the looser side, so this may not be one thing you're going to want to be moving and playing around too quickly with, because, of course, this may fall out of his hands. And he also has, again, you can just move the grip just a little away from the palm, and you get the Bat Radio in there as well. The Bat Radio obviously doesn't sit as well. You sort of have to pinch it against Batman's fingers and his thumb, but he also has at least the means. Weird thing, though, is on the back of the radio. I'm just going to look on the other one here as well. Yeah, it sort of has the contoured lines that look like it's been 3D printed. You can kind of see the way unless that's the way the original Bat Radio looked like in the series. Anyways, though, Batman is using those same accessories. He is also using the same cape, and one of the problems that goes with using this same cape is that McFarlane wants to add tape on the bottom of the cape to glue it inside the packaging, or to adhere it inside the packaging so the cape just doesn't flop around. Be very careful when removing the tape. I forgot all about the problems I had with the 60s series trying to take the cape out of the packaging, as peeling away the tape leaves, unfortunately, a really horrible mark left behind on the cape. You can see right there. So be careful. You could cut the tape right where it cuts on the end of the actual cape, but of course you're still going to have to remove it. You may just want to run a few passes, perhaps, with a hairdryer just to soften up the glue a little bit, and then you just be able to peel the tape off a lot easier. I'll know that next time when we have a look at some of the other caped characters from this series. Getting, though, a closer look, though, at the new adventures of Batman. Again, from a 70s series, late 70s series. This predates the 80s and the starting of, like, the superpowers, super challenge of the Super Friends, trying to get that all out. Speaking of challenge of the Super Friends, I would be loving to see McFarlane using maybe this same type of body, giving us versions of Challenge of the Super Friends, of course, with the Legion of Doom. I mean, obviously, I'm still a little disappointed by the fact that these figures don't have any articulation with the tops of their thighs. Sure, yes, they still swivel back and forth, but I would love if these figures could have had right from the beginning, and that predates it back to the 60s series, that they also would have had articulation at the top of the thighs. Head sculpt-wise, it's a really good-looking Batman from the cartoon. I don't think he looks like the friendliest. This Batman looks a little somber, a little sad. I would have given him a little bit of a smile or something. But the colors of the cowl are very close to the cartoon. That's a lot of C's. You got the darker color there on the top there. This really reminds me of all like the merchandise that would have gone around in the early 80s. Mostly from Super Friends, but I had myself a Light Bright, for example, that had Super Friends characters. And of course, I mean, really, once you start adding the pegs into the Light Bright, it just ruins the whole idea of exactly what color you're supposed to be putting in. Batman's supposed to have blue, but then again, like the moment you start putting the pegs in, you'll be lost by the idea of where the things are supposed to go when you wanted to recreate Batman a second time. Now, he does have the little emblem there down below. The benefit of them actually using just the basic body and not actually sculpting this means really that they can do whatever they want when it comes to printing this in place. Like, I mean, obviously the bat symbol is pretty close to the one that we got from Adam West. It's just slightly varied, but it's pretty close though. The utility belt, of course, down below is also one thing that carries over. What would have been gold from before is now completely yellow here with the newer Batman. It still sits a little low, though, so you're going to see the top there of the trunks of Batman. I wish that this was a little bit higher up. Other than that, though, it's the same body. I mean, obviously, it's using this type of arm as opposed to the breathing mask. I still wish that they could have used the breathing mask, so at least he would have had a double gripping hand instead of just the one. Capes are pretty much exactly the same, at least from the way they attach onto the back of the figure. They are pointed as well the same way, so they probably would have just used the same cape pattern. And the boots are also exactly the same, really, between the two. I don't know why, though, looking at the two Batman, I've got one very obvious seam line right down here on the side of his thigh. It wasn't here on the original one, or even if it was, it's very faint. This one's even more apparent here, and I don't know why. It doesn't have it as much on this side, but there's this big, long line that runs down the side of Batman's thighs. Now, obviously, though, if you're only looking at it from the front, you'd really never even notice the fact that there's that little seam line. Articulation on this figure is going to be exactly the same as the Adam West Batman. So his head's going to rotate all the way around. It looks up pretty good. I mean, obviously only looks up that far. It doesn't really look very good. Head also rocks back and forth as well. As for his arms go way beyond the point of 90 degrees. You can also as well take those arms and rotate them. The problem with it, though, is his torso, you can see, sort of forms the shape of a triangle. So it's going to get a little hung up. You can see when you start to rotate the arm all the way around. The figure also does have, just get his arms down here, a bend on the elbow, which also allows the forearm to rotate back and forth. The hands as well rotate all the way around. The figure has a waist swivel. And while, unfortunately, he doesn't have still the splits on the legs, which is the one thing I really wish that these figures could have had right from the beginning, he still manages to have a swivel back and forth. The figure has a single hinge in the knee. The lower leg only rotates slightly, which leads me to believe that there's only just a hinge alone in the knee itself, and there's no ankle articulation whatsoever. Figure does, though, technically have pegals on the undersides of his feet, so if you wanted to have Batman in a more running pose, even though he doesn't come included with a display stand, you could easily pillage one from another McFarlane release. All in all, though, a nice-looking figure. We are going to be looking at the rest, thanks to the folks over at McFarlane Toys, the rest of the new adventures of Batman figures. But again, bringing back in the original 60s Adam West Batman and bringing in the breathing mask Batman. While, yes, using somewhat the same bodies, this one just benefited again from the gripping hands. I do wish, again, like I said this already, I know. I do wish that this figure could have had the similar arms to this one, even though, again, like they're really using the 60s Batman body anyways. Just use those gripping hands, then he would have had the means to hold both Bat accessories. Other than that, though, yeah, really happy with this line. I was a big fan of the original 60s series Batman line that McFarlane has produced. I think they are still producing figures for that, but I'm really super stoked. I grew up loving the Filmation New Adventures of Batman. Again, only running 16 episodes. That's not much at all. It certainly had a lasting impression, and this is sort of also as well that iconic Batman that carried over to other cartoons like Scooby-Doo. So things like the Joker figure that we will be looking at in an upcoming video, The New Adventures of Batman Joker, is again that iconic Joker that made appearances not only in the New Adventures Batman cartoon, but made appearances elsewhere as well. It's The New Adventures of Batman and the case of the stolen display stand. Actually, we can close that case right away. I'm admitting the fact that I stole the display stand from a DC Multiverse figure. While these figures don't have display stands, no, they do have the benefit at least of having universally sized holes on the bottoms of their boots. So you could use a display stand from another figure that McFarlane has produced. I've got the Batman figure right now in a running pose. I wish one thing that could be benefited this figure, this guy has, 12 points of articulation. I would have upped the ante till 14 and at least given him swivels on the tops of his thighs. That way he can get a wider stance on Batman. But at least for what he has at least 12 points. And that's a lot more than some of the retro figures that have been released by other toy companies. Now, we are, of course, getting a Batman that's built the same way as the original 60s Batman, but that 60s Batman also benefited from eventually having vehicles. I hope that this Batman is going to follow suit, and at the very least, we're going to be getting ourselves a Batmobile, one that accommodates not only the Caped Crusader, but also as well the Boy Wonder, as Robin is part of the New Adventures of Batman wave as well. Big thank you once again to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the brand new Adventures of Batman, that we can have a look in this review. As promised, Promsies, we're going to have a look at the entire wave in upcoming videos. In the meantime, though, posing a question to you, the viewing audience, what's the earliest Batman cartoon you remember watching as a kid? This, I'm sure, will date many of the viewers down below. Perhaps was it the 77 New Adventures of Batman? I mean, I'm putting my hand up for that. And also it was Challenge of the Super Friends. But what's the first earliest Batman cartoon you remember watching as a kid? Let me know down below in the comments section. In the meantime, though, if you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and you're on board for the rest of the New Adventures of Batman wave, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Yes, turning on the bell notification is always really important. And also the most important is make sure you're coming back here regularly. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.